Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for the 22nd of October. All right, as we enter Monday's trading in Asia, there's been a few little moves to start the week. The Aussie up about 20 points, and the Kiwi also sort of jumping up about 30 or 40 on the start of trading. Now, I think that's pretty much based on an improvement in house prices in China. Went up from 7 to 7.9% over the weekend. It's one of those weekend releases that you can't really factor in. The rest of the currency pairs are trading pretty much as per usual. Dollar yen still sort of gliding to the sideways. Euro continues to sort of jump around all over the place, but within a sort of 116, 114 and a half sort of range. Brexit is having its usual calamities with sterling, although there have been reports that 90 to 95% of the deal has been done. It's just this Irish border seems to be the last sort of boundary. So that's sort of just jamming away in a big range there as well. Dollar CAD. Now, this is one of the key releases on Friday. Just looking at the numbers as they come out. CPI and retail sales figures look like the wheels have just fallen off the Canadian economy, especially the inflation numbers. So we saw really weak inflation numbers, even a drop-off in retail sales. That saw dollar CAD shoot up almost 100 points to the top side. Oil steadied around $69, so it sort of came back a little bit. But the big sort of drop-off in inflation was pretty much due to, or put down towards, and I haven't seen this, I don't think at all, a decrease in air travel pricing. Okay, so go work that one out. So it's a little bit oddball. We're talking about gas pricing and air travel prices as the main catalyst for the fall there. So just taking a look here at the numbers, like the core inflation numbers. Well, you got the main numbers up here, and even the Bank of Canada core numbers were slightly weaker. Now, this has done nothing. There's still the Bank of Canada meets this week. There's still 97% chance of a rate hike in Canada this week. So I don't think that's changed the outlook, but it may change the future outlook, and that's where that statement will be very important come Wednesday. Retail sales figures also slightly or weaker. But if you look at the way these retail sales figures work, they sort of bounce around a 0.4, 0.5 variance each month anyway. So it's not a big deal. The inflation numbers to me is. That's be interesting to see what happens next month. Especially if they're putting it down to a big drop-off in air travel costs. I mean, work that out. Okay, so that's the major numbers. Now, just on the end of the week, actually, just one other little component there. The existing house prices, I've sort of left this off the major data that I've been following, but house pricing, going back to the GFC, was one of the key numbers impacting the whole economy. Now, there's a little bit, the existing house sales a little bit weaker than forecast. So that's put a little bit of downward pressure on the US dollar. So if I just come back to the majors, this is where you can really sort of piece things together. Actually, whilst I'm there, let me just show you these numbers. So this is one of the problems with I find with China and their transparency. I mean, it's only a small impacting number as such, but China house prices 7.9%, 7% expected. Now, what we have seen is and I'll come across and show you this in a second, the dollar yuan has appreciated on the open, and that's where that little up move in it's only, Aussie's well within the range. One of the interesting things is Kiwi is higher, and I'll show you what's going on here because there's overall, if you look at the fundamentals and technicals together, Kiwi sort of trading sideways, but technically it is breaking higher, and I'll give you a look at that in a second. So as I mentioned, dollar yen still sort of sideways. Euro, okay, now let's just piece this together. So the EU have come back to Italy and said, you've got to redo your budget. You're a bunch of muppets. It was well outside all regulations and rules, so they are expecting that to be done. Now that was the big catalyst for the move down. Now everything seems to have been smoothed over and we're back at 115, sort of above 115 again. Now that could be partly to do with Brexit as well. Now Brexit, this sterling is too hard to call with Brexit, all these news coming out. So I'm just going to sort of sit and let that sort of jam away because, it has sterling rallied on the back of one of the EU guys saying the deal was 90% done. But you know what, had that little shoot up here and then the market sort of just dropped the ball straight away and said, look, we've seen that before. We've seen that turn around. So as I mentioned, dollar CAD was the major mover on those weak numbers. Now, if I come across and just give you a look at the overall complexion here of the dollar index and dollar yuan, the two big raw nerves in the market at the moment. So the dollar index itself, I mean, yeah, it is slightly weaker. As I said, the existing home sales were slightly weaker. Sterling rallying and also euro will always put a little bit of downward pressure on the basket. But overall, it's trading sideways. Now, dollar yuan, okay, it was off about 60, 70 points, which isn't much for dollar yuan. Okay, if you see this thing trade, it can do 100, 200 points in a blink of an eye. We'll have to wait and see whether it's the house prices that it has impacted things. New Zealand is on a holiday at the moment, so that's why liquidity is a little bit thinner on the Kiwi. Look at US equities. This is the basis for all major equity markets. Pretty neutral. Okay, the Dow Jones slightly up, S&P slightly down. Look at these equity markets on Friday in China, up sort of 3%, 2.5% to 3%. Man, I can't work out what's going on in China. It's like, yeah, there's one day we're going to have a major impact. The data's going to be really weak. The next day it's pretty strong. So it's pretty fickle markets at this point. Now, let me just give you a look at the news before I give you a look at the snapshot and everything else. Having a look at what's going on now. Saudi Arabia, this has turned into a complete nightmare for them. Jamal Khashoggi, it does appear that he has been executed or whatever it may be. They're trying to protect the Saudi prince, but this is going to have ramifications for relationships between the US and Saudi and all these other countries. I mean, they can't just sort of walk away from this. Someone has, and they're saying they're going to take action against who did it, but we have to wait for this to roll out. This could have a bigger ramification with regards oil, US arms sales of all things to Saudi Arabia and all these other relationships. So we're going to wait and see how that plays out. Trump has said he's going to leave it to, I think, Congress to work out what they want to do with that whole situation. Probably a smart thing, considering put it back to the people to see what they want to do with it. Because if they make some bad decisions, it could impact some parts of growth. I mean, the only people I can see that are going to lose out big time are the people selling arms, okay, military arms. OPEC, the situation with oil continues to sort of jam away, although oil has drifted lower. There's also another hurricane starting to build off the coast of Mexico, which, that won't have too much of an impact. If it gets into the Gulf and starts shutting refineries, that's when oil price will probably likely rally. Now, there's talk of, to me, this article at the top here is classic media trying to build some sort of story out of nothing. FX options flag uncertainty before US midterm elections. That's a whole lot of crap. It's just an opinion-based article. Now, I think what's happening is, and you'll see this in the data analysis snapshot, most of the major currency pairs are just trading sideways. So they're looking for upcoming events where we may see the US dollar move one way or the other. Now, the US dollar fundamentals are very strong, so the US dollar should go up. But all the geopolitical issues Trump delivers are sort of negative. So it's sort of a bit of a balancing act. And that's why we're not getting the US dollar moving anywhere. So option activity, I'd say we're getting closer to the year end as far as budgets go for all the traders at the banks. They'll be looking to sort of generate some activity. What they'll be trying to do is get some volatility moving. If not, selling options, also looking for, starting to play the range in much bigger amounts. Okay, so the other news, sterling, this is what I was sort of saying before. This was out on Friday. Sterling gains after EU's Bundes Brexit deal 90% done. May has come out. Theresa May even come out over the weekend suggesting that it's 95% done. There's an issue with the Irish or Northern Ireland border. What they don't want is, if there's no deal, they don't want to go back to a hard border situation where everyone's showing passports. And they can't agree to that, which seems a little bit weird considering it's only such a small portion, of the whole deal. Okay, says the demand. We've got dollar CAD hit 5-week lows. The data supports gradual rate hike approach. So as I said, no change in hike expectations for the CAD, even though the inflation numbers were much weaker. And that's where we leave it. So let's just have a look now. We're sort of coming into the start of the week, the trade week. If you just look at the MyFX Trading Hub, there's a couple of things here now. I'll just run through what's coming up this week, and then I'll come back to the what we can expect today. So upcoming events. Now I've just isolated the major events. There's a number of speeches coming out from various central bank, say like associates. There's a couple of Draghi speaking on Friday, but most of the speeches this week are around like just speeches they've got to give at different functions. Nothing to do really with monetary policy, but so I haven't included those yet. But these are the major releases. I think with Euro, okay, with this situation in Italy, that's probably subsided. So we may come back to the data. There's some German and Eurozone flash manufacturing numbers come Wednesday, I think it is. And then you come back into the Bank of Canada. This is going to be one of the more important releases. Now, the market is expecting still the rate hike. So what that means is the press conference will become the real probably event and the statement that comes out from these guys. Now, we've also got the ECB. Now, this is coming at a time where everything's pretty neutral. So these guys have been sort of slowly walking us towards some sort of change in their QE. If that changes or there's no development, then the market may get very, I was going to say pissed off, but they will start to sort of think, well, nothing's really happening in the Eurozone, and especially with this unrest in Italy, maybe you just sell Euro because there's no changes. So just keep an eye on this. This could be, obviously, it's going to be a key event. The Euro against the dollar being the biggest trading pair. And as we come down into the latter part of the week, this is what we really want to see is we want to see some more direction about what's going on in the US economy. US durable goods comes out at the same time as the Euro ECB press conference. And then you've got on the Friday, the US advanced GDP numbers. So the week itself, there's not a hell of a lot to get distracted by. Usually some weeks we have 15 or more major events. There's not that many this week to really focus on. But to start the week, what you've got to understand is, geopolitics is still dominating across the board. We've got, with the EU, we've still got that outgoing Italian issue with regards to their budget. Obviously, the euro and sterling, for that matter, impacted by Brexit updates, random updates, people saying the deal's done, others saying it's not, et cetera, et cetera. That's there. CAD, well, we have got a resolution on NAFTA. That's a good thing, but there is still sort of simmering issues with regards to what's going on with oil output. But that's not such a big deal like it was with NAFTA. But we do have the Bank of Canada coming up and really varying numbers out of Canada. So when I come down to the snapshot, this is where it starts to get interesting as you start the week. You really want to start to plan things out. Now, trading hasn't become, or has become, as I said last week, this is the overall snapshot. Now, I just want to explain this because I had a few people ask me the other day. This is a combination of the fundamentals and technicals, okay? If you're looking for the actual breakdown of the fundamentals and technicals, you have to go into the summary, which you would get by clicking on these charts. So the overall summary, and this is what I've been doing the last probably couple of weeks, is I've just been adjusting the hourly charts because they go up one day, down the next, up, down, up, down. There's been no change in the overall daily or longer term picture of these currencies. And when I'm saying currencies, I mean the whole row here. There's major geopolitical events impacting some of these pairs, but we haven't seen any signs of a change in trend in the US dollar or any other major pairs. But that is, and it could slightly change because, as I said, if you go into each of the pairs here, you'll find the detail. Now, one of the interesting pairs is, to me, which is sort of just bucking the trend a little bit, is the Kiwi, right? The Kiwi, the little battler, fundamentally sideways, economic data sideways. But if you come into the overall snapshot here, into the summary, the technical outlook is actually just starting to point up on the hourlies and the dailies, starting to trade sideways on the weeklies. It's not enough for me to say I'm bullish Kiwi, but it is interesting to start to see this has slightly changed. And let me just give you a look at what I'm talking about here. And it's the easiest way to do this. You can't really see it on the hourly charts. This is why you need to have a perspective where you are looking at, say, the hourly charts as well as, the bigger, longer term charts as well. Now, what I want to do is just take you over here to the same majors as we have here, which are all hourly charts. take you over to the daily perspective, like longer term picture, and you can actually have a look here and see what's going on. Aussie still sort of continuing on overall on its downtrend. As you can see at the moment, the last week or two, it's just been trading sideways. This is where the little battler, the Kiwi, a flightless bird, I should say, is starting to sort of break a little bit higher. Dollar yen just cruising gently to the top side. Euro sideways. Sterling sideways. Dollar CAD pretty much sideways. So this Kiwi is interesting to see what's going on there. If I go into actually the Kiwi itself, you can actually have a look here on a number of different time frames. It hasn't been convincing to move higher. And as I said, there's a holiday in New Zealand today. The stronger Chinese house prices must have been the catalyst for a move higher. The daily chart, you can see it's starting to break higher here. On the weeklies, it is starting to trade sideways there as well. But on a massive monthly time frame, it is still moving to the downside. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. So when I come back to looking at trying to work out where the match up some direction here, if I'm looking at the overall big picture though, the major pairs, even in the Kiwi as well, are still trading sideways. Now, what we're looking for out of the economic numbers is a change in this picture. Now, what we need is, and this is where all of the overall trends come from the central banks. And that's why when I scroll back up here, you look at the upcoming events for this week, you should be reasonably excited with the chance or the prospects of a change in potential sentiment or some major directional shift in momentum from these two events, Bank of Canada and the ECB, two big central banks due to deliver their goodies this week. And that's pretty much what we can do. So what you need to be doing at this point is actually just going through your analysis technically and then fundamentally, understanding that geopolitics are still simmering away. Mondays are not the best day to be trading at this point anyway. And these major releases aren't coming out for a few days. So you've got to really cool your jets and actually work out where the next best trade is. To me, because of the structure of the analysis at the moment, okay, it's pretty tough. If anything, this structure here suggests to me range trading with some pretty big ranges, within ranges, right? So there's no major change. Of course, Brexit is the most random of the pairs. The US dollar, still strong fundamentals, but, Trump's got his foot in about 5 different geopolitical issues. So that's a bit of uncertainty. And then we've got the EU and also the Bank of Canada, or the ECB, I should say, coming out later this week. All right, so that's where we are, guys. It's a little bit unexciting just at the moment, but that picture can change very quickly, as I'm sure you are all aware. Okay, guys, so that's it for me. Keep an eye on the, as you come into the start of the week, keep an eye on the dollar index. Obviously, it's just getting shunted around by euro and sterling at the moment. Dollar yuan, this puppy here, has gone a little bit quiet. The whole Chinese-US trade tariff situation has gone a little bit quiet because of now the media are focusing on Saudi Arabia, right, and all that fresh news. They love focusing on fresh news. And this has just come out right now. So Turkey obviously got their hands full. Erdogan and Trump discussed the legal process to go to the US pasta. Okay, well, it's about the pasta. You would expect the more news to come out about Saudi Arabia coming up. Looks like the Saudis are going to turn on their own punters who they got to get rid of the Journo Khashoggi. So anyway, we'll see how that plays out. I wouldn't like that job, that's for sure. That's it, guys. Not much to really jump up and down about. Doesn't mean this week can't be a great trading week, but you just have to remain patient and wait for these opportunities to drop. And keep an eye on your charts. At the moment, if we start to see some good US dollar weakness, well, to me, the best probably pair to be trading is the Kiwi. It's starting to move a little bit higher, even though it's pretty unconvincing just at the moment. All right, guys, that's it from me. Have a good trade week. Have a good trade day. I'll see you in the live trade zone. If you've got any questions about the presentation or anything else, just jump online and I'll happily answer your questions. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll catch you later on. Cheerio.